Hello and welcome back to my channel. For the year of 2020, I read a total of 53 books, which is not a lot by most booktuber standards, but to be honest, I did start my channel mid-year and right after coming out of a massive reading slump during the beginning of the pandemic, where I read absolutely nothing. So, all things considered, and considering that my original Goodreads challenge was of 50 books, I feel pretty good about it. 53 books is over that Goodreads challenge. So to summarize all the books that I read in 2020, instead of doing the best and the worst, I just thought that instead of doing that, I would do a tier ranking video. I've seen so many tier ranking videos over the last year. They were really trendy back in 2020, and that's why I thought, why not do that for all of the books that I read during the year. I have seen other people do this as well. I can't remember who, but I'm sure that I have seen thumbnails of people doing the exact same thing. So this is by no means an original idea. I just thought this is something that sounds like fun, something that I want to do, and it has nothing to do with it being an original idea or anything like that. I hope you enjoyed this. Let's start. So let's start by describing the categories that I've got. So the first one is books that live rent-free in my head. All of these categories are slightly inspired by TikTok in general, because that's also something that I have been enjoying greatly in the year of 2020 and has wasted many of my hours. So the first category, lives rent-free in my head, is basically any book that I still think about. It was so good that I still really think about that book till this day. It's the true 5 stars. Then for the 4-star rating, I can't talk right now, I'm doing hot girl shit. Reason why being that I feel like that one represents a book you can't put down. A book that is so good that you're just enjoying yourself. It's just good fun. And it doesn't matter whether it's perfect or not. You might not rate it 5 stars, it's maybe a 4-star, but you had fun while you were in it. So I have put Nobody's Gonna Know for the 3 stars category, because it's kind of to represent books that, well, nobody's gonna know about them, or at least I won't remember them that much. They're average. It's just an average category. It's books that I didn't hate, I didn't love. They're just, yeah, they were there, you know? It was okay. Then for this 2 stars category, I have put straight TikTok. The reason why being that even though I am a straight woman, I have obviously ended up on the lesbian side of TikTok, because that is the best side of TikTok. And to be frank, I think straight TikTok has this reputation of being a little bit cringy, a little bit not that funny, and just there. It's just there. So that's how I feel about these books. And then finally, for the last category, or the 1 stars, I have put Oh No, Oh No, Oh No, 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 No. We all know that song, come on. So the first cover that I have here is Living Dead in Dallas, and this is one of the books that I read from the Sookie Stackhouse collection, from the Sookie Stackhouse series by Charlene Harris. It's the books that inspired the True Blood series, and I rated this one 5 stars, but I can't honestly say that it's one that lives rent-free in my head. I think it's more of it's a really fun ride. It's one that I enjoy rereading, absolutely did, but it's not in the extraordinary. It's more like the I can't talk right now, I'm doing hot girl shit. I'm gonna say similarly to Dark Fever by Karen Mary Moaning. Wait, no. Is that what it is? I'm doubting myself. Okay, so the covers are still slightly cut off. I'm so sorry, I'm being such a boomer about this, but I figured out how to make the covers not too cut off so I can actually read the titles. Yeah, Dark Fever by Karen Mary Moaning. It was good fun, but it wasn't extraordinary either. I can't remember how much I rated it, but I remember thinking I might read the next one in the series one day. I just don't think today is that day. So yeah, I think it's gonna be in the Nobody's Gonna Know. Yeah, it wasn't bad. I enjoyed it, and I think I rated a good amount of stars, probably 3 or 4. But essentially, I could just never read the follow-up to it, the sequel to it, and just be fine that way. So I think it just deserves a 3 stars. Then we have more from the Charlene Harris series. I think most of them belong kind of like together in the same category, and frankly I can't remember exactly which ones were better or worse than the others, so I'm gonna put all of them in I Can't Talk right now. I'm doing hot girl shit. They all belong in there. The next book I have is Halfway to the Grave, and this was shit. Like, I hated it. Like, I had a bad time reading it, and I'm gonna put it in oh no. Yeah, it's going straight into oh no. Then I have an Agatha Christie, which is And Then There Were None, which I have read other Agatha Christie's that I have enjoyed so much more than that one. And this one, I know it's a classic. I know that it has inspired so many amazing pieces of fiction since then. Like, it has inspired other books, it has inspired movies and TV shows, and everything is great. I love the energy that it brought to us. I love the story that it brought to us. But when I read it, I found it boring. I had no connection whatsoever with any of the characters because it was very fast, and it was immediately like, hey, all those people are put on an island and they've all committed some sort of crime or murder, but not directly, and therefore they can't be judged in court of law. So this mysterious person is judging them this way instead. By killing them off one by one on this mysterious island where no one can come and save them and they're cut off from the world. The point is that the premise is great, the execution I actually didn't love. Which I know is crazy to say about the Queen of Crime herself, but I just enjoy other books by her better than this one. This one just was not my fav. This one just was not my favorite, and therefore I think I would put it in straight TikTok. Yeah, it's a straight TikTok for me. It's just there, that's all. Then I have another Charlene Harris. I'm just gonna put it up there with the other ones. Love the Vampires, great, fun, cool. Okay, John Dies at the End was actually the one book that I was reading that kind of put me in a reading slump for a while, but it was essentially quite good. I still remember it, and some parts of it almost would live rent-free in my head, but not the entirety of the book, and essentially it was just too long. It was just too freaking long, and it was never ending, and the same plot was happening over and over again, and I was just bored with it. So I'm gonna put it in, it's average, yeah. There were parts that were great, but the fact that it was too long was sucked, so it's in the middle. It's Nobody's Gonna Know. Then I have Daphne du Maurier, which is My Cousin Rachel. Most people that I know of have been reading Rebecca this year because Netflix came out with a new movie for it, and I've already read Rebecca. And the thing about Rebecca is that once you've read it, you don't particularly want to reread it, because the thing that makes the book really fun and amazing to read is the plot twist. And once you know the plot twist, it's not that great to read again. So I read My Cousin Rachel, but I read it with my mom instead. And frankly, it suffered from the same thing as a lot of books I've read this year, which was, it was too fucking long. And essentially, if it wasn't for the fact that I was reading it with my mom at the time and wanted us to have something to talk about and to make sure that we both read it up till the end, I would have DNF'd it. So I'm gonna put it in straight TikTok because I don't think it deserves to be in like the worst category either. I was interested in it. There was a lot of mystery. There were parts that were generally intriguing and fun to read, but it was overall very long and long-winded and kind of boring, and just, I almost thought, oh, it's a product of its time. Like, if it had been written nowadays, maybe it would be faster and more interesting, but I'm not sure, because there's plenty of books I've read this year that are from very recent times and that suffered from the exact same thing. The next book I have got on here is A Rogue by Any Other Name, which was, I think it was by Sarah MacLean, and it's a historical romance, one of the first ones I've read, and I think it was good fun, but essentially I'm not even sure what this one was talking about, because that's the problem I have a little bit with historical romances, is some of them are a little bit forgettable. They're just like good fun, and once you're done with it, you can forget it. So I'm gonna put it in Nobody's Gonna Know. Then we have The Darkest Part of the Forest by Holly Black. This is the only book by Holly Black I have ever read, even though I know she's a very famous author and a lot of people on BookTube have read her many books, and I think that this is not her most famous work at all, but this was a standalone, and that's why I picked it up originally. It was just a fun fantasy story as a standalone, mixed in within a world that is our current world, and I love that kind of stuff. Honestly, I had great fun while reading it. I love the main character and it was just a fun ride. So this is gonna be in I Can't Talk Right Now. I'm doing hot girl shit. Then we have Bloodbound by Patricia Briggs, which I think is the second one. Let me see if I can find the first one first. Yeah, there we go. Moon Cold is the first one in that series. So I'm gonna put them together. Essentially, about this series, it was just really fun, and it's the reason why I wanted to read the second one immediately after the first one. So I think it also deserves to be... Ooh, did it go in there? Yeah, it deserves to be in I Can't Talk Right Now. I'm doing hot girl shit because it was just so much fun. Like, I immediately picked up the second one. I really liked the romance in it, and it was action-packed, and it made me think a lot of the Charles and Harris series with Sookie Stackhouse. It was very similar in vibe and in premise, so I'm putting them together there in that 4 stars category. There's another Charles and Harris here, so I'm gonna put it in there. There we go. Then we have Radio Silence. This is a YA contemporary book that was kind of like a story of friendship and figuring out what to do after high school and college and those difficult decisions and all of that. And honestly, it was beautiful. It was just lovely. But I don't think it's a book I would have picked up or read or finished in its entirety if it hadn't been for the book club that I was participating in. When I put it down at the time, I thought this is a 4 stars for sure, and I think it deserves it, but it's not really my style or my vibe, and I kind of, for that reason, want to put it in Nobody's Gonna Know, because I would not put it above the other books or in the same category as these other books because I didn't enjoy the ride as much as for them. So I want to put it below it. Yeah, I'm sorry. Then finally we're getting to a bigger one here. We have The 7 Husbands of Evelyn Hugo by Taylor Jenkins Reid, and I rated this one 5 stars. I read it in one day. I couldn't put it down. It was so freaking good, and I loved it. I absolutely loved it. And this is not a genre that I read often off either, but I just absolutely adored that book. So it goes in, lives rent-free in my head. It's the first one to go there. Okay, let's get this show on the move. Next, we have Meddling Kids. This is a book that is very Scooby Gang type of stories with a bunch of kids who solve crime in their small town, but then they grow up and it becomes supernatural actual shit happening and spooky horror vibes, and they're adult and there's a lot of gruesome stuff, and it was just really fun and made me think of like those pulp books from back in the day. Not that I am from back in the day, but you know what I mean. So I had a lot of fun reading this, and honestly, no one knows about this book. Like, I don't think anyone I know has ever heard about this book. I think it deserves more attention. It was really fun. I'm putting it in I Can't Talk Right Now. I'm doing hot girl shit, which so far means there's quite a lot of books in that category, and I thought that I had read so many mediocre books last year, but apparently not. I have read a lot of books I've really, really enjoyed. So next we have Bad Girls with Perfect Faces. This is a YA thriller novel that I read during the 1,000 Doors readathon, so when I read around 5 books in 1 week, and it was really fun. But this book in particular, I was kind of like, meh, it was really average. It wasn't that great. And actually, I didn't love the setting. The only reason I read it so fast was because it was fast-paced, and also I was trying to read as many books as possible within that short amount of time to fit it in the readathon. But other than that, I'm not even sure I would have finished it normally. I kind of want to put it into straight TikTok. It's just there, you know? It's not that interesting. The Duchess Deal by Tessa Dare. This was good fun. It's another one of those historical romances that I think is a little bit forgettable, but I had a lot of fun reading it, and yeah, I should have made more categories. I would generally put it in between I Can't Talk Right Now and Nobody's Gonna Know, but I think I'm gonna put it in Nobody's Gonna Know because of the other books that are I Can't Talk Right Now, and I feel like this one is below them. Then we have Polaris Rising by Jessie Mihalik. Oh wait, let me, since this is the second book, The Duchess Deal, it's the second book in that series, let me put in there The Wallflower Wager because they go together, obviously, and I feel like it makes sense to have them in the same spot because I felt the same way about both. They were good fun, they were really cute stories, I enjoyed them. Very forgettable afterwards though. We have still quite a few books to go through. Then we have 3 that should be together. So there's Polaris Rising here, Aurora Blazing here, and Chaos Reigning here. So all 3 are in a trilogy. It's basically space princesses doing badass shit and kind of spy type of things, but also evading arranged marriages and that kind of stuff. And it feels very much like a historical romance, but in space somehow. So I loved these books. They took me out of my reading slump around the time when I was like, I don't want to read anything, but these were so fun, just so fun. And it was pure entertainment and pure like guilty pleasure. And I think I want to put them in I Can't Talk right now. I'm doing hot girl shit because they definitely deserve that spot. So here's 1, here's 2, and where's the 3rd one? It's here. I think it's the 2nd one, I'm not sure. So yeah, these 3 all go in that category. I'm gonna run out of space for it, which is good. Okay, then we have The 7.5 Death of Evelyn Hardcastle. Now, this is a controversial one. It's the first book that I read in the year of 2020, and I personally loved it, and I rated it 5 stars at the time. I totally understand why a lot of people have said they didn't enjoy the book. It's very long, there's loads of characters, you kind of get confused at some point, but I loved it. I loved it, and when I put it down, there was a part of me that was just like so immensely impressed with the kind of craftsmanship and the hard work that went behind making that book work and putting all, you know, the dots together and connecting everything, that I was like, this is above a 5-star for me just because of that, just because of how impressive it felt. And I'd say that I still think about it that way, so I'm gonna put it in It Lives Rent-Free in my head. Here are the 2 Evelyns. Okay, then we have These Witches Don't Burn. This was a disappointment. It's a YA fantasy novel. It's basically girls that are in an actual witches' coven, and originally I was very excited for it because it sounded exactly like the type of story I love, and it has LGBTQ rep, and it just sounded like a lot of fun, just the summary of it. But there was a heavily toxic relationship in there that I absolutely hated, and it was never properly addressed. It was never seen as that's really bad. It was just seen as like a slap on the wrist type of bad, not a excuse me, that's fucking toxic. So I'm gonna put it in, I was so disappointed in it. I just really disliked it by the end, and I don't think it deserves to be any higher than oh no, which is bad because I don't think I rated it that badly originally. I think I saw it more as an average and put it in a 3 stars, but the more I've been thinking about it, the more I hate so many things about that book and how disappointing it was to me. So it goes straight in there. I'm so sorry. I feel bad. Anyway. Then we have Norse Mythology by Neil Gaiman. This was a non-fiction book. Well, it is a fiction book actually, but it's like a folk tales type of book. So it's not really like a normal, traditional, what we're used to reading fiction books. It's more like fairy tales, and it reads as such because it's about all the gods and other creatures, you know, in Norse mythology. And it's very short stories types. It reads very fast, but essentially I don't think the format is something I loved that much. It's not that I didn't enjoy it, it's just that it was average because of the format for me. It's not something that I love. So I'm gonna put it in Nobody's Gonna Know. Next we have The Babysitter's Coven, and actually I almost feel like wherever I put These Witches Don't Burn, I should put The Babysitter's Coven because it's extremely similar in vibes. It was a very similar type of story, and just as disappointing for other reasons, more because the character development was kind of crap. The character in itself was kind of crap. There was almost no characterization to her. She was just so average and boring, and honestly I almost feel like these books are better than the 1 star that I'm giving them here, but because I was expecting so much more from them, they really went downhill because of the disappointment. So here we are. Then we have Humble Pie, which is a non-fiction book by Matt Parker that talks a lot about like funny stories in mathematical errors that have been done, you know, in humanity, in the history of human life. And it was fun at times, extremely boring at other times. And I'm gonna put it in straight TikTok because I regret picking this one up. I just should have known better, but I do enjoy sometimes non-fiction, and I just thought maybe this one will do it for me, and then it just didn't. It was not in its entirety good. It just felt like some of these stories would have been great on their own, but as part of the whole, there was a lot of boring shit in there, and I was just like so done with it. I wanted to read something different. Then we have My Best Friend's Exorcism, which I read in the month of October around Halloween time, and I really enjoyed it. It was not scary. I didn't find it scary at all, but I loved the premise and the idea, and it was really well written. I thought so, at least. So I'm gonna put it in I Can't Talk Right Now. I'm doing hot girl shit. Here we go. Knew it was gonna be a double line for that one. Then we have Twilight. So Twilight is one that I reread this year as part of a series that I've been doing about reading paranormal romances in like the top 10 on Goodreads in a list. And it was good fun. I just enjoyed it, but I'm not gonna lie, it's average in general, like objectively as I can be, because you know, this is obviously subjective, but still I'd say it doesn't deserve the 4 stars. Nobody's gonna know. I'm gonna put it in there. So the next book that I have here is The Whisper Man, which is a thriller for adults that I read this year really recently. And I think I put the vlog up quite recently on my channel. I honestly just enjoyed this so much. I kind of want to say it's not exactly a I Can't Talk Right Now book, but it's also not as bad as the Nobody's Gonna Know category. It's kind of in between, and I don't want to put a new category up just for it. So I'm gonna put it in I Can't Talk Right Now. I think it deserves its spot in that category. Next, we have The Test by Sylvain Neuvel, which is a short novella. It's 100 pages, and it basically is in a dystopian world, you know, in the future, where we have brand new techniques for immigration services in England. And it was kind of spooky and interesting and very Black Mirror-esque. So I'm still thinking about that book quite a lot. I really enjoyed it, and I would love to read more in that kind of universe. I thought it was brilliant, and honestly I really like the way Sylvain Neuvel writes, and I want to put it in lives rent-free in my head, I think. Yeah, I've decided. It's going there. It's going up there. Okay, next we have Bunny by Mona Awad. So this book was part of a buddy read with my friends for a book club we started this year. And it was really strange and weird. And I didn't know what to think about this book most of the time. But essentially I realized it's not for me. Like, I loved the first half, I think it was, or like there was a part in the middle or something where shit started to happen, and I was like, wow, I'm enjoying this so much. But then it kind of faded away and other stuff happened, and the resolution and the conclusion to it and what happens at the end, the kind of twist that we get at the end, made me not like the book as much, and kind of, it disappointed me in that way. So I don't think it was for me, and therefore I think I'm gonna put it in straight TikTok, because yeah, I didn't want to rate it any higher than 2 stars, and I don't think I did at the time either, so I think it's going there. Next, we have Now Entering Adamsville. This one is going straight into, no, it's not going there. It's going into Lives Rent-Free in my head, because I fucking loved that book. I did not expect to love it that much. I read a lot of average reviews on Goodreads, and it doesn't have a great rating, so I was really surprised, but it was so fun. It was just so much fun. And I loved the main character and the super slow burn romance and the kind of Scooby Gang group that kind of creates itself around the time in the book when shit starts to hit the fan. Yeah, it's very Buffy-esque. It's got supernatural vibes, and I really loved it. That's it. I'm gonna stop talking about this book now. But anyway, it goes in there. The next one I have is Dogs by M.A. Bennett, which is the sequel to Stags. I really enjoyed this, and I don't think it was as good as Stags. I don't think it was as memorable either. I loved Stags so much, and for a YA thriller I thought it was really well written. I will read the third book in the series soon this year for sure, but in the meantime I'd say this was just a fun ride, and I'm gonna put it in I Can't Talk right now. Next we have One of Us is Next, and I kind of want to say originally I would put it in I Can't Talk right now. I'm doing hot girl shit. It's the sequel to One of Us is Lying, and I loved One of Us is Lying, but One of Us is Next was just not as good and kind of disappointed me. Like, I enjoyed it and I enjoyed the ride. It was just really fun when I read it, but unlike One of Us is Lying, this book I don't think I'm gonna remember that much later on. So I'm gonna put it in Nobody's Gonna Know, because I felt like it was more forgettable. Then we have The Hand on the Wall, which is another YA thriller. It's the third book in that series, and I really enjoyed the series overall, but I didn't like the romance in any of the books. I thought it was really toxic, and basically the guy in it just does a lot of shit and says a lot of shit to the main character, and then just gets forgiven and it's not mentioned again. And it kind of, I hate that, and just for that reason, because it's kind of the same reason I had to put These Witches Don't Burn in oh no, no. I'm gonna put it in the same category. As much as I liked the story overall, I'm pissed off when books do that, especially YA novels, because it kind of teaches younger girls that, yeah, that's the type of romance you should aspire to. And no, it's a big fat no. Don't aspire to this toxic shit. So it's going down here. Next we have Pine by Francis Toon, which is considered a thriller novel that takes place in Scotland, but really it felt more like a weird contemporary supernatural vibes, and I didn't enjoy it. Like, I'm not gonna lie, I think it's just been completely miscategorized, and some of the main characters in there, including the dad, it was really hard to root for those characters, so I'm gonna put it in oh no. Next we have Thursday Murder Club by Richard Osman, which I loved. It was so much fun. It was just so much fun to read this book, and I know a lot of people haven't thought so because it is slow. It's a slow paced, you know, thriller, and it's not a thriller, it's a cozy murder type of book. Like, there's no gore, there's no scary moments, it's just, it almost feels very cozy and sweet and fun, but there's also murder. So this is about a group of retired old people that live in a retirement village, and they're fans of true crime, and they have cold cases that they're trying to solve in their little Thursday Murder Club, but then one day real murder happens. So I'm gonna put this one in I Can't Talk right now, because it was definitely a super fun ride. Okay, next we have The Fox's Curse, which is, it's the sequel to a bunch of books by Sarah Painter, and I love the series. I've really enjoyed most of her books so far, but I didn't like this one at all. The reason why I didn't like it so much is because the main character in this one really cannot catch a break. Like, everything that happens to her is just so shit, and it's like non-stop, and you want to have some victories in a book. Like, there was no balance. It really felt like, instead of going up and down, which I think is kind of normal when you want to create twist and conflict and, you know, like just a lot of things that are moving forward in a book, which I totally get that. You need downward moments, but this one was just that. There was no upward moments. There was no moments where you were like, yeah, she gets a little bit. No, she just kept getting shit thrown in her face, and I was so done with it. And I'm gonna put it at the very bottom for that reason, because honestly it sucked. It was a sucky experience. I don't want to read books like that. I want to read books that have a little bit more of an uplifting vibe to them. So Clown in a Cornfield by Adam Cesare is the next one, and this one is basically a slasher movie for teens, but obviously in a book format, where you have a small town in somewhere, I think maybe in Texas, I'm not sure, and basically the old people, the boomers in the town, are really like against the young people and the youth, and like they hate each other. And when some more shit happens because the young people throw parties and whatever, a killer clown starts taking them down and killing them off one by one, and it's really good fun to read. But I didn't like the main character. The main character sucked. She was just so average and boring, and everyone else was more interesting, and she was just the new girl and had no qualities of Fleurs. She was just such a blank canvas, and because of that, it's going in straight TikTok, because I could almost put it in Nobody's Gonna Know, but I just hated the fact that the main character was so average. Like, everyone else was more interesting. A lot of people that die in it were more interesting, and I was just disappointed in that. Next, we actually have Save the Cat, which is a non-fiction book that I read for the purpose of writing better, because I have been writing novels as well this year. And normally I don't really rate non-fiction books, but since it's there, let's place it somewhere. I think there were some good things about it. I definitely learned some shit, but it ultimately felt a little bit like condescending in some ways. It felt a little bit like the guy was trying to tell us, well, these movies are wrong and these things are wrong and you should do it that way, and that way is the best and only way you can do it. And that kind of annoyed me. So I'm gonna put it in Nobody's Gonna Know, because it's kind of average. It's got good things about it and bad things, and that's where it stands. Next, we have This Earl of Mine, which was another historical romance that I read and thought was good, but ultimately forgettable. And I don't really remember what this talks about, so I'm gonna put it in Nobody's Gonna Know. One by One by Ruth Ware is a thriller adult novel that kind of follows a similar vibe to And Then There Were None by Agatha Christie, but it felt super similar to The Hunting Party by Lucy Foley that I read before, and I enjoyed that one so much more because I just connected more with the characters and the story in general, and I felt like One by One was just a little bit more average, so I'm gonna put it in straight TikTok. Next, we have The Night Swim by Megan Golden, and this is about a woman. It's also an adult thriller. It's about a woman who has a very successful podcast where she talks true crime and investigates, and she goes into a small town where there's been an accusation of rape about this boy that is meant to become like this superstar in swimming or something. And while she's investigating this and live streaming on her podcast what's going on in the trial that is happening live, she's also getting messages from a woman who's telling her that her sister died 10 years ago or something, and that it wasn't an accident like people tried to say, but it was a murder, and the two cases are kind of linked together. So this was super freaking fun. I really enjoyed it and really felt like I wanted to read more with the same characters, and there's definitely room for that towards the end. Not that there's any cliffhangers, but you do feel like there's more to come with the characters themselves, not with the story and the plot that is very confined to this book, but just with the characters. It's not a 5 stars because there were some flaws to it and I didn't, love every second of it. Like, there was some room for improvement, but it was such a fun ride, so I'm gonna put it in I Can't Talk Right Now. Next, we have Catherine House by Elizabeth Thomas, and this is another one of those weird books, kind of like Bunny, but a little bit more slow-paced and a little bit less happening. And it was okay. I enjoyed the writing style. It was fast-paced enough. I read it fairly quickly, but not much happens and there's not much of a plot, and the main character is a little bit like apathetic, so it's hard to root for her. So I'm gonna put it in straight TikTok. Okay, this next one, The Inheritance Games, you know what? I'm straight gonna put it in, lives rent-free in my head. This was so much fucking fun. This is a YA novel, and it's about this girl who discovers that despite being a nobody to this guy, she's just inherited millions from this millionaire from Texas who just died, and he's left nothing to the rest of his family, including his, I think it's 5 grandsons. And when she goes over to, sign the papers and be there for the will to be read and everything, the grandsons are like, well, our grandfather loved puzzles and mind games and all of that shit, so we think that you're his last mind game and that we have to solve you. And she's also under contract to stay in the house while she's, getting the assets to her. So she has to wait like an entire year to become officially the recipient of the assets and become the millionaire. So she decides to stay on and try and solve the puzzle that is in the house with the grandsons. And it was just so much fucking fun. It was so fast-paced, and just all the characters were really interesting, and I just was rooting for all of them and really just wanted to know what was going to happen next. But also they were complex, you know, there was some character development and there were like plot twists discovered and everything, and just, yeah, loved it, absolutely loved it. Next we have The Guest List by Lucy Foley, which is very similar in plot to her first book, which is The Hunting Party, and I just didn't love this one as much. So I'm gonna put this one in Nobody's Gonna Know, because I feel like it was almost the same storyline, and just The Hunting Party is better in my opinion. Next we have Mexican Gothic, and I'm gonna put this one in Living Rent-Free in my head, because it was a horror novel, obviously Gothic horror. I just felt like this was really spooky, but in the vibe, in the atmosphere. It wasn't scary, like I didn't have any hugely scary moments, but it was unnerving, like it gave me the creeps a lot of the time, and it was beautifully done. But also I loved the main character, Noemi. I was rooting for her the entire time. I really loved all of her complexities, her flows and her qualities, everything about her. I loved it. So I think because of that, it's going up there in the first category. Next we have Blackbird, which is a graphic novel, and I thought it was really average. The art is gorgeous, the art is absolutely beautiful, but the story was so fast-paced that you had no time to understand anything, like just nothing was explained, and I was like, this should be 3 or 4 graphic novels, not one. And that was hugely problematic to me, so I think it's going into straight TikTok, unfortunately. Next we have The Secret History, and this one I'm putting straight into oh no no no, because I fucking hated it, and I wasted I don't know how many hours reading this book, because it is a brick. It is so long, and I didn't actually hate it. I don't know how to explain, because at the time I didn't give it a rating, because I was like, there were moments that were very interesting, and towards the end I read it so fast because I was like, now I want to know what's going to happen next, and it was really well written. But essentially I hated all the characters, and I need to root for someone, even if it's just one person, and it was so long, and the first 200 pages are useless, absolutely useless. Like you can just cut them out. There's no need for these first 200 pages. Because of that, I'm pissed off at it, so it's going in oh no 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 no. Finally, the last book on my list is We Have Always Lived in the Castle by Shirley Jackson, and this one is creepy in vibes and just a little bit intense in terms of the characters. I kind of half guessed the ending, but not in its entirety, just not the way it was going to be revealed, but I did, you know, it was pretty obvious from the beginning. And I don't know how I feel about this one. I feel like it gave me strong feelings at the time, but then since then I have almost forgotten that I read it, so I'm gonna put it in Nobody's Gonna Know. Yeah, and that's it. That's my final ranking, which is really interesting because it tells me that I have 1, 2, 3, 4. Yeah, so we have 24 books in the top two categories, which is saying that like almost half of the books that I have read last year I really loved and enjoyed greatly. And I guess the other half I was like average, didn't like, hate it. So it's not that bad. I thought I would have a lot more just in Nobody's Gonna Know. That I thought that category would be 2 lines, but the one that is 2 lines is I Can't Talk Right Now, which is 4 stars. So really a pretty good summary of my year. This is probably a really long video already, so I'm gonna stop talking now and I'm gonna go and enjoy the rest of my evening because it is Sunday. I hope you guys enjoyed this video. If you did, please leave a like, leave a comment, consider subscribing, ringing that bell, all that jazz, and I will see you guys next time.